And we're live. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. This is
Hello.
Friday. Oh, wait. Let me record this. Okay. Audio. Okay. This is Friday, June 20th. There are 33 days until San Diego Comic-Con 2014. Welcome to the SDConCast, the official podcast of the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog.
VANUHTEE go. Oh my god, I love LiveJournal, and my LiveJournal loves me. Current mood is hyperactive, current music, Refuse 73. I love her color scheme, it's pink and purple, it looks dreamy. I love all the posts I make and the million comments that they rate. I love the internet and I love the world. Oh my god, I love my...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog's SDConCast, the weekly podcast to talk about all things Comic-Con. I am your host, Jeremy Rutz. Joining me on the podcast today is James Riley.
Good evening, everybody.
Sorry, James, I turned you down.
What?
Let's try that again.
Good evening, everybody.
Ooh, there you go. The sultry dulcet tones of James Riley. Awesome. Also joining us, back for his second time on the podcast this year, Shawn, the Confluence Marshal. Hello, Shawn.
Hey guys, good to be here.
And he's on his iPad again, so we don't get his lower third. So, but we'll always say he's at theconfluencecovers.com. Is that right, Shawn?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what it would normally say.
that is.
And
what I
at
say.
_con_influence. And also joining us, our very special guest today, Doug Kline, the author of the Unauthorized San Diego Comic-Con unofficial... Sorry, let's do that again. That's a mouthful. It is the Unauthorized San Diego Comic-Con Survival Guide. Hey, Doug, sorry about that. I'm so used to saying the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog. So.
Well, I've actually dropped the unauthorized from it, so it's
Cool.
fine either way.
Cool. So we are. Well, you're not necessarily authorized. It's just not much of as much of a mouthful. Is that right?
Right.
Awesome. Okay. So I am extremely excited to talk to you today because first of all, you helped me on my first Comic-Con back in 2010. There were two sources that I used on my first Comic-Con, and the first one was your book, and the second one was this site. And so I attended Comic-Con as an attendee in 2010, emailed Zach afterwards, and I told him how much I liked the site and told him I wanted to write for it the next year. And lo and behold, this is a perfect example of be careful what you ask for. But I just wanted to say the book has been an excellent guide, and it's been out there for years, but you've recently updated it, is that right?
Yep, I should be launched. In fact, just last night I launched the pre-sale for the book, which should be out, being shipped out to people in early July.
Ooh, excellent. All right, so let's get down to business. Okay, I want to talk about, you know, I mean, we write for a site every day, and you know, we're doing blog posts or whatever, and that's busy enough. I could never imagine writing an entire book. I mean, what made you want to write a book on navigating Comic-Con?
Oh, well, when I first went to Comic-Con, it was 2004. And I had just moved to California a few months beforehand, and I had never been to a con before beyond, say, MegaCon when I lived in Florida for a short time. And MegaCon is nothing. It's mega, it's huge, but at that time it was nothing compared to what San Diego even was at that time. When I got there, I'm a list maker, so I just ended up doing whatever I could to organize what was happening to me. So
Yeah.
And that was all afterthought, because I mean, honestly, I got my hotel in May, just before the convention, in a European-style hotel, which turned out to be a hostel. It was not pleasant, but once I learned all these little lessons, and I sought out other people on the web, even on the Comic-Con official message board, which is now long gone because they couldn't handle all the negative backlash, people not being able to get tickets and stuff.
Right.
but that's all the tips I could get from everybody else. I just made a list for myself, and I said, you know what? After so many years of doing this, why not just compile it and share it with people? Because people were asking me, how do I do this? How do I do that? So.
Yeah. Wow. So how long did it take you then from from starting that list to actually getting this out to people to read for people to read?
Well, it was in 2010, so I mean, I had played with the idea of making a book for a while, but I didn't really know how to get it published. I mean, I've done my own little photocopied zines and little books myself in the past. I used to be a concert promoter in the East Coast, and I used to I put together a book on how to promote your own concerts, and I sold none of them. But they were just these little booklets, and they were just my thoughts just dumped onto a page or many pages, and I was waiting for a chance to figure out where I could print this, self-publish it, and that's what I was going to do, because nobody was necessarily going to pick up a nobody to publish a book on facts that they might have known. Like, who was I? I was nobody. I went to the LA Times Festival of Books, and I ran into a bunch of people who make a thing called Mini Book, and it was this little tiny rectangle thing. It's handheld. You can hide it in your pocket. When I saw this format, I was like, okay, I'm sold. I need to make it like this.
Wow. So that's excellent. Now, when I bought it, I bought the digital copy, so there was a PDF version, and I remember keeping it on my phone. I was telling you before the call, I had it on Dropbox, so I could just download it whenever I needed it while I was at the convention and look up stuff. I mean, how many of those did you have printed up? Do you can you say?
Probably about at least 1,200 or so.
Wow.
Yeah,
Excellent. Yeah. So all right. So the book's been out there for about 4 or 5 years now. And you said that you started going to Comic-Con back in 2004. So what do you remember from that? You said you started you stayed at a hostel and you started taking a list of all that stuff. I mean, do you remember what that first experience was like?
Yeah. It's obviously night and day from what it is now, and of course, I could go to. I mean, I bought my ticket in May. I got my hotel in May. There was no fight to the death for it. I showed up on preview night, and I could walk down the aisles with my arms stretched wide and never touch another person. It was a very different experience.
Wow, that's great. And so James has been going. What, James? You're on 20 years now, almost? Or
21
no?
this year.
Wow, that's great. So and Shawn, you've been going for a while too, right?
2005 was my first year.
Yeah. So you guys all remember those times. I kind of. You can blame me because I'm one of those guys that when you say that it kind of tipped the scales and everybody started going, that's when I started going. But yeah, you guys are definitely remember those times as well. So since then and now, you said a lot has changed. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen? I mean, obviously there's the badges that are so hard to come by and everything. But what are some of the other big changes that you've seen since then?
One of the weirdest things is just seeing how celebrity changes at that place. When I was there in 2004, I was lucky enough to go see a screening of Shaun of the Dead, the first time in the U.S. Nobody knew who Edgar Wright was or Simon Pegg or anybody else, and of course the floor was set up a little bit differently as well. You see, you walked right through the front doors out of the lobby, say in Hall E or D. And there's Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright just signing autographs to a very short line of people who have no idea who they are.
Wow.
These days, 10 years later, you try that, it would be a mess.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. Yeah, that's so it's kind of the celebrity appearances, or just I always say, like, the secret is out, right? So everybody knows that that's a place where you can kind of rub elbows with celebrities, and everybody started to go, and it's gotten more and more crowded, to the fact that celebrities have to walk on the show floor in costume because otherwise they'll just be accosted.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always the rumor of whoever's wearing normal clothes and a stormtrooper helmet means that there's somebody famous now. Hayden Hayden Christensen and Simon Pegg can't get away with that anymore. So.
Right, exactly. Okay, so one of the things that we've noticed, our site's going on 5 years this year, but I mean, we started about the same time, but really, you kind of started that Comic-Con fan community. So what has been your assessment of how it's grown since then? I mean, there's been a lot more fan sites, us. There's been a bunch of other folks. Obviously, we're doing a podcast, but the fan community's really been participating in celebrating Comic-Con and promoting it. So what's been your assessment of how it's grown?
Well, it's definitely more organized now. I mean, obviously, back then, I didn't come up with all this stuff by myself. I mean, I learned from a lot of other people in message boards and other things like that. But as the blog world has expanded and suddenly everybody has their own voice, especially through podcasting, yes, we become a more professional, organized-looking entity, and we all sort of feed off of each other and share that kind of stuff. So it becomes much more accessible to the people who have no idea what this is involved. When I approach the book, I try to make it so that it's appealing to people who've gone 20 years. Mm-hmm. Most of the people who've come up to me, a lot of people have come up to me and said, "I've been going since 1970, and what can you tell me that I don't already know?" Well, it's very much different. From 1970, you should know this.
Right.
Even just 10 years, it's very different. And what I have in the book 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, 2010, a lot of that stuff has to change. I mean, I try to make it, when I wrote it, I tried to make it as high level and as general as I could so it could last as long as it could, because I didn't expect to write more than one of them on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. But it's the idea that things change no matter what. Stuff is completely out of our control, and I can cringe at all the little tiny things that I find in here that are just completely out of date.
Yeah, we do that too. We have a bunch of guide articles, smaller things obviously, but we'll look at those and we'll say, oh man, this is like I was looking at one the other day, and it was like, oh, if you want to line up for a panel, you should, in Hall H, if it's really popular, you should get there at least 2 panels ahead of time. So it's like that's completely blown out the window, and we wrote that like 2 years ago, right. Which is crazy.
Yeah. With the exception of specific things like that, though, have you noticed some of the general things changing much in the last 4 years? Because I think the last 4 years have been kind of similar for the most part. It's just they've gotten bigger and more extreme, maybe, but they're all pretty much the same versus the 4 years versus the 10 years, right?
Yeah, it has leveled off to a certain degree, but I think what we're seeing more of now, the biggest changes are expanding into the city even further than it usually has. I mean, taking over Petco Park 2 years in a row for the Walking Dead escape is a massive undertaking. They've used it for other things in the past, but usually it's been small press events. But now there's entire carnivals that they suddenly put together over the past few years. I mean, honestly, right now, inside on the floor, the things have changed that are just basically booth rearrangements. G4 used to sit toward the front and used to create this log jam of people that they'd have to keep clearing away whenever, Olivia Munn would stand on stage with somebody. So they've moved that to the back, and now G4's gone altogether. Warner Brothers used to have much more was front-loaded, and now it's along the back wall, and it can do whatever it wants because it always has those massive lines that snake back and forth throughout the room. Yeah. So it is a lot of change in that sense.
Yeah. You ever think about consulting?
I would love to.
Yeah. Sorry, Shawn, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say in those last 4 years, I was thinking how much things have changed just in a lot of the stuff I do with the exclusives and the freebies and stuff. Is every year that's substantially different in terms of what the different booths are doing to deal with the crowds. Every year people are getting there earlier, and whether it's Lego and going to a lottery system, or Maddie added obviously the pre-sale a few years ago, but it seems like every year they're kind of adjusting as if the crowds are coming even more so for those types of items, and so that's just been interesting to see.
Yeah. It's hard to create a book that's so broad, because a lot of people go to the show for very different reasons. If it's a collector or just want to see, I usually spend my entire day Saturday in Hall H. Yeah. And I blow an entire day in Hall H. But some people never go to Hall H, so it's hard to determine what the audience is who would read a book like this.
Yeah,
Read our sites.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like Comic-Con is truly is all things to all people, and you could have all different kinds of interests and go to Comic-Con, and it's one convention, and two people with two different interests could have very different experiences, all positive, but there's so much going on that you could just basically land on Wednesday night and say, okay, I'll see you on Sunday, and then have a completely different story between the two, but similarly is awesome,
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, between like you said, Hall H. We have people we know people that just line up in Hall H every day. They'll just get out of Hall H at night and then go back in line. You have people that Carrie's one of those actually. She'll just she loves waiting in camping out overnight for the panels. You have people going for the collectibles. You have people just going for the offsite and just to celebrate kind of that carnival atmosphere that you were talking about. So all things to all people. It's really crazy. I do want to touch on that a little bit because, like our site started originally because there was no place that was really documenting all the off-site events that were happening around the convention during the week. And so we started by creating that off-site event calendar. Well, it wasn't really even a calendar then. It was just a list of events. What can you talk a little bit about, how the off-site experience has changed or grown over the years?
Well, I actually, whenever somebody says, "Oh, I'd love to go to Comic-Con one of these days," and they live in LA area or even somewhere in Southern California, and I say, "You can technically go to Comic-Con without a ticket. You just can't get inside because Comic-Con now is spilled out into the streets. It's in clubs. I went to a Death Clock show on an aircraft carrier a couple years ago. It's in Nerd HQ. They've done all sorts of things. If you want to see Doctor Who or Nathan Fillion or whatever else, and you want to support a good charity, you do all the Nerd HQ stuff. It's definitely, at least they're doing stuff rather than just, hey, here's a crappy television show we're promoting with free junk that we're handing out to you. At least some of the people that they're putting stuff out there that's doing some good. So.
Yeah, I mean, what's your take on Nerd HQ? Because that's, it started out as kind of a small thing at Jolton Joe's, 3 or 4 years ago now?
Yeah.
And it's really turned into this huge thing to the point that, Zach is asking for $1 million because it just costs so much to put on. I mean, what's your take on these, I don't want to call them counter conventions, because it's very much a complimentary convention, but there are a lot of them. There's that Trickster that used to be there, which hasn't been announced yet this year. GamerCon. I mean, there's like little pop-up conventions that happen around the city. I mean, what's your take on those?
They almost become necessary for some people who just want to avoid. I mean, some people go there because it's their job. They do it because it's their life. They might work in the comic industry. They might work as an executive in television or film, or they're just some sort of creative type who just needs to get away from the massive crowds. And sometimes the massive crowds just cluster in different places, but in many cases you can go to Trickster and just meet a lot of people that are of the same mind as you. You're a comic book creator, and they're a comic book creator. There's another hidden little place which is probably well known by now. There's a hotel bar that everybody congregates at. If you want to meet almost every major comic creator just randomly over a beer, you head to that hotel. And
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, in the background you see Lou Ferrigno having dinner with somebody else, but then over here you're sitting with a guy who just wrote X-Men last week. It's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah.
They're unofficial.
Do you guys have any questions about offsites, real quick? Nothing.
I was just going to ask because again, everybody's experience is different. What's kind of your favorite thing to do in the last couple of years on the offsite?
I have gone to the Trickster stuff, and I do like going to that hotel bar. And just hanging out with friends, and we just end up it's a good little networking kind of thing. I've done the Walking Dead thing the last 2 years. I don't think I'm going to do it again because it's 45 minutes of running for your life from fake zombies, and it's exhausting. It's crippling after a good 45 minutes of running.
Right.
Yeah, I did it in Philadelphia. That's where I live, and I did it a couple years ago. And I explained it as it's kind of like a boot camp for nerds, but it's like truly a boot camp because for 45 minutes you are like using every piece, every muscle in your body to get through. You know, jumping over things, crawling under. It's really crazy. Yeah. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
If you want to see a transformation, I'm going to throw out a link here verbally. If you want to see my experience over the years of things I've taken photos of on my Flickr site, flickr.com/photos/popculturegeek, you'll see all those albums on there all the way going back to 2004 where I took like 42 pictures. That's it. There's some that are in the later years are up to like 800-900 pictures, and you can see just how much is transformed. There's a shot I was looking at today of what it looked like outside the convention center, and it was during the show, during the day, and the streets are empty.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's
crazy.
Empty.
We're getting some questions from our readers, so I just, as we're going through, I want to answer some of these. So Alonzo Mendoza says you were talking about the name of that hotel where you can meet the comic creators. Is that a secret, or is that in your book?
Well,
make them buy your book if it's in your book.
No, it's not in the book. It's only something I've realized because I have a number of comic creator friends who go to these things, and they sort of drag me along. And again, Trickster has, in most recent years, been that thing where people, the professionals, kind of hang out. But it's at the Hyatt.
Okay.
Hopefully, I won't get in trouble.
You didn't hear that. We heard that.
Most of us knew that already.
Good. Well.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Trickster hasn't been announced. I guess it's not going to happen. I should probably email those guys.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So the other thing I'm going to talk about, and this is what we've said this past year, is that offsites, kind of like you said, but they've become more of a necessity now. But especially this year because Comic-Con decided not to sell multi-day tickets. So there's probably more of a likelihood that the majority of the Comic-Con population, if you will, don't have a full set of tickets. So there might be a lot more people with one day missing. What's your take on that single-day ticket sale decision by CCI?
Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with it just because I'm press, but it's I imagine the frustration that comes out of that. I mean, my biggest frustration is just getting a hotel, but having a ticket and not being able to get in certain days just because, and it's the day that's something that I really wanted most of all. I can't imagine dealing with it.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, I would almost find that welcome in a sense that there'd be a burden off your shoulder, right? So when you have Comic-Con tickets, you have 4-day passes, and you're kind of like, okay, I have the schedule, and I've checked off my first, second, and third choice for every hour of every day, and I'm trying to get into Hall H, and it's pressure. But if you don't have a ticket, you're like, okay, well, cool. I'm gonna go hang out in the gas lamp all day and enjoy myself. Like, it's almost kind of like this burden, and you can have a whole new experience.
Yeah, or just sleep.
What's that? Not at Comic-Con. No way. Never at Comic-Con.
I've actually had, when I was working for another site at one point, I think last year I spent a lot less time in Comic-Con than I did all previous years, where I just stay in my hotel room, try to write stories, and then I'd take a nap. I'm like, me 5 years ago would never imagine that in a million years, but it's necessary as I get older.
It totally did the same thing last year on Sunday. We slept in instead of trying again after the endurance test that was Hall H the day before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I totally get that.
And it's true, because if you're covering for press, it is so much easier to find out what's going on during Comic-Con than if you're actually there, because it's like you're so in the trenches that you're almost like cut off from everything, and you're only experiencing what's in front of you. And then you get back to your room, or you're checking Twitter or something when you finally get a moment, or you've recharged your phone, and you're like, holy crap, that happened? Holy crap, this happened? It's just like this whole new experience. It's crazy. That we call it kind of the eye in the sky, that we used to have somebody that would just stay home and cover Comic-Con and help us out, and they would know way more about what happened at the convention than we do. Like, for example, a few years ago when there was that stabbing, it wasn't a stabbing, I think it was just like some guy got scratched with a pen or something. But you know, coming out of your panel or going to a party that night and then hearing about it, you're like, holy crap, that happened at Comic-Con? It's crazy.
I was in the room when it happened, on the other side of the room, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had to check Twitter. The room was that full, so I could see people clustering. I saw EMTs heading towards that corner of the room, and we're all just like, what is going on? Check Twitter. Oh, somebody got stabbed.
Same thing happened. Same thing with us.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So, all right. So I was telling you about this earlier when we were talking, but I want to go deep because, and not to give away all the secrets of your book, but because I do want people to check it out. Like I said, that's how I started with Comic-Con. It was a great help. But I want to go deep on some advice. Right. So we talked about. Well, let's talk about the book for a little bit. So now, do you? Because the book is very different. I would assume than how it was when I read it in terms of, do you cover how to get badges, how to get your hotel room, how to get parking passes, because all that stuff now is difficult where it wasn't before.
Yeah, it's harder just because, the core of the book is really about just managing expectations. Whether you're new or you've been there for many years, it's still the idea of going, I don't want to hate this experience by the time it's over. So it's a matter of just sort of getting your mind right and going, okay, this is how I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to treat people well, and even if they treat me like crap. Don't treat the people who work there like crap. Try to just be good, and hopefully it will come back to you. When it comes to specific things, yeah, I can't really say this is how you get tickets, because obviously Comic-Con at this point is now trying to be a well-oiled machine that will tell you, I think because a lot of us who've done these things and given all these tips online, I think they've finally gotten to the point where they are very detailed in how you get your tickets, how you get your hotels. Before it was just sort of, here, show up, log on. Oh, it's crashing for 4 hours? Crap. We're sorry. Now they have to get their stuff together, and they have. They've done things better every year. Still frustration by many people, but that's just what's going to happen regardless. So,
yeah. Put that away. So that's a question that I have is there's a like the crowds obviously have gotten bigger. It's been more crowded at Comic-Con. What has there been a change in the crowds from your perspective, or do you think that it's always kind of been the same? Because there's a lot of people that accuse the Twilight crowd, for example, right, of ruining Comic-Con. I don't want to say ruin, but you get a lot more mainstream people. I would count myself as one of them. Do you think that changes the experience at all, at least in the past 10 years?
You know what? I would never begrudge anybody from wanting to come to a Comic-Con. If they can get into it, great. If they somehow take the ticket from a fist of a true fan, then that's unfortunate. But you know what? I go to smaller cons as well, like Long Beach here, or Kamikaze, they're both growing here in Los Angeles, and they bring in a majority of people who've just seen the Avengers, the Marvel films, and they have never picked up a comic book in their lives. Yeah. It's not a big problem. If somebody is somehow introduced into geek culture, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. Even unfortunately at the sacrifice of true fans.
Well, is there a sacrifice of true fans, or at this point is everybody a true fan? Because you're talking about Avengers or Iron Man, but comic books have kind of infiltrated, if you will, the mainstream public. You see them on television, you see them in movies, you see them on T-shirts, you see them everywhere. So Comic-Con is essentially kind of intertwined with mainstream pop culture.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it is sort of seen as the elitist getaway for both the celebrities and the fans. So you kind of end up in a situation where it's some people feel that it's meant to be just for the true hardcore people, and yeah, you get the conflict, but it's a lottery at this point when you get in, it seems. So.
Right. Go ahead, Shawn.
I was just going to say on that too, on the thing I've heard people say, and then I was interesting because like at WonderCon I talked to James Robinson when I was getting him to sign some books and asked him about if they were going to San Diego, and he was just like, I don't plan to ever go to San Diego again if I can avoid it, just because of all the expenses and the time and just the whole thing that they as creators have to go through too. And a lot of the comic sites say their stuff gets buried, so because of the they can't keep up with Joss Whedon on stage for Avengers, so it's better to have Image Expo a few weeks before and do announcements there, things like that. So I think that's kind of one of the fears in the big picture too, is that some of the comic people start to fade away from it a little bit, and not that DC and Marvel are ever going anywhere, but that it becomes a little bit more just kind of a going through the exercise rather than doing the big things they used to do there.
Yeah, it's an ordeal, even again for the professionals, not just the fans. Right. I know a guy I play poker with. He's an artist for a major comic company, not Marvel or DC, but he does a lot of stuff. And he was just telling me the other night how, they had hotels. They thought he was going to be sleeping on the floor of somebody's hotel at some point, but then they all got moved 8 miles out somewhere. And this is, you figure that all the big deal comic creators would have everything established and taken care of.
Wow.
It's not a free ride for anybody.
A couple weeks ago on Comic Vine, which is obviously a big comic book website and podcast, but they were talking about their least favorite convention of the year is San Diego, and it's just because of all of those things. As they said, they've got to cover it, and obviously they have to be there, but there's just so much that goes into getting a room, getting us parking, whatever it is, that all of us go through as well.
Yeah. So, and talking about kind of how it's grown and changed a little bit. What's your take on the expansion? A couple years ago that and I think they were supposed to start breaking ground this year. I don't even know if that's going to happen or what. Yeah. But I mean, Comic-Con will soon, someday, presumably in the next 3 or 4 years, house another. I think it was like 30%. So you take that in terms of what the population is now, and we're probably talking another 40,000 people, which, there's not even enough hotel rooms in the Gaslamp to support that. People are going to start staying in Orange County and just driving down.
There was a kid once ran into in line for Hall H. He'd be always at the front of the line. We'd see him there every night. We wondered, well, where do you stay? He's like, I don't have a hotel room. I don't even have a car. My parents drop me off. I'm in line at Hall H every night. I don't care who's in Hall H. Wow. I just have a place to be, and I'm in the front row pretty much every day, and he's not bathed all weekend. But still, it's the idea that's where he is constantly. So yeah, I mean, for some people, they just give up.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, we've got a question from one of our readers or viewers at NASCAR and Bronco fans. Hello again. He says, everyone on here tonight, do you feel that hotels and motels price gouge? I mean, what's your take on that, Doug?
Well, they definitely do outside of the official comic things. Obviously, if you went to the Marriott or whatever and tried to go directly, they'd be charging you $600 a night. Instead, you're paying $225 if you're going through the official thing, but they sell out in minutes on the official day. So, yes, there's going to be gouging. It could be a whole lot worse than it actually is.
Yeah. And you mentioned 600. I think the Bayfront was charging 900, almost over 1,000 with taxes per night.
919 or something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? That's funny. We got another question from Travis McIntyre who says, do you think with it getting harder and harder to get into Comic-Con, do you think the people will turn on Comic-Con? That's a good question.
It all comes down to the experience. If they can still create an experience that is fun and pleasurable, if it becomes a grind, no. But again, back to what I write in the book is the idea that it's up to you whether you're going to enjoy this thing or not. You're going to fight for what you want, or at least be satisfied with what you get in order to make your trip. If this is your only vacation this year, and you're going to do what you can to make sure you have the best time possible. Hopefully you don't walk away just grumbling the entire time.
Right.
Yeah,
I was thinking about... Oh, go ahead, Shawn.
I was going to say, I think what Doug said at the beginning about just managing expectations is so critical, because it is, I mean, there's no other show that can match the spectacle of Comic-Con. I mean, it's just such a unique experience, you know, the Tom Hiddleston taking over Hall H type experiences that nothing can match. But, you know, managing those expectations and being able to have a good time, I think. And so, like, I know for us, like, we always get 6 or 7 hours of sleep. That's just how we do Comic-Con. And I know for a lot of people that's not, you know, that sounds crazy and you're not getting it. But for us, that's what makes it enjoyable to have energy that day. And, you know, hopefully people, you know, do exactly what he says and says in his book, and just, you know, manage those expectations and keep enjoying Comic-Con for what it is, because it is a beautiful thing, as much of a struggle as it is to do things there.
If anybody's going to turn on Comic-Con, it'll be the people who throw money at it studio-wise. At some point, they might not feel that it's profitable enough to bring their product there, or it's not as much of a hassle to bring their 14 executives and all their booth babes and their massive booth setup to go, you know what, I don't feel like... I mean, like, Marvel wasn't even at WonderCon this year. I mean, it's... sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. But it's... I mean, that's a Comic-Con International show. Why wouldn't they be there? Well, it's not worth their time.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I do want to get into competing cons in a little bit, but you know, we talked about kind of diving deep into some of the advice that you have in your book. I mean, do you talk about the lines or getting in lines in your book? I know we said that the majority is all about, you know, making you know, choices, but you know, what advice would you give somebody who, you know, is there just to go get in Hall H?
Well, the thing is, you can't put a time. I mean, I could give you a time. I could say, make sure you're in line by 5 a.m. But, of course, the moment I say that, that line that gets in at at 10 o'clock in the morning, well, those people had to be in line by 4 a.m. So it keeps changing. One time I did get in line at 5:30 in the morning 2 years ago, and we just made the cutoff sitting in the back row for Django Unchained, and then we're there for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I mean, that's 5:30 in the morning, but it all depends on what's in the room at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to making sure you have maybe a team of people who are willing to be there from the beginning and then swap out occasionally. As long as you get to know the people around you, it's not going to be an issue, hopefully, with somebody going, you've been gone for 9 hours. What are you, you know, why are your friends showing up here at the last minute?
Right.
That becomes annoying to some people.
Right. And, you know, it's another thing is that I think it's most important to just get in the room, because once you're in there, there is, and it all depends on the panels and for that day and what's going on or what's scheduled throughout the day. But sometimes you can kind of leapfrog closer and closer to the front of the stage. You know, people will come in, people will leave, and when people leave, those seats are open, and the people in the hall get first dibs on that, because, you know, obviously there's new people coming in, but you're able to spot the people leaving first, so you're able to kind of leapfrog. And I did that once. You know, I sat way in the back in Hall H, and by the time, you know, that the last panel of the day was, I was in the front section.
I'm going to make the controversial claim that Twilight kind of helped in that way, because if you were going to a panel later in the day, like I was there to see Avatar a couple years ago, and you know, I wanted to see the first look at it in 3D. Twilight was playing before that, and I'm like, thankfully I got in, but there's people behind, couple 100,000 people behind me that didn't get in, and thank God when Twilight was over, the room cleared.
Yeah.
Every teenage girl and her mom left, and so all the other people after that suddenly were able to fill that room. So it's kind of good to have a variety sometimes. That you might luck out.
All right, so we talked about lines a little bit. James or Shawn, do you guys have any questions before we move on to something else?
No.
All right. So
I tend to agree that yeah, there needs to be, like I've said it before about something needing to be done about the lines and how they manage them, but we've gone over that many times in the past about line sitters who have those 9 friends show up at the last second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just something that we hopefully discourage as much as possible.
Yeah. It's funny because well, not funny, but we had Ali Matu on earlier this season on the podcast, and he came up with this awesome idea. He said that because he's a psychologist or psychiatrist. Sorry, Ali. Hopefully I didn't get that wrong. But he was talking about the kind of the psychology of waiting in lines, and one of the things was he said you wait in lines for Hall H and it feels like forever, but you'll wait in line at Disneyland, and first you'll go in and they'll say it's a 3-hour wait, but they inflate that so that when it's actually 2 hours, you think, oh, that wasn't so bad. And also, while you're waiting in line, they make it this experience, so it kind of keeps you preoccupied. And he was thinking that Comic-Con should come up with something like a Hall H experience. So while you're waiting in line, you'd be able to see, like, oh, here's the great panel videos of years past or something like that, you know?
Interactive view.
The smart company will come up with the branded big flat screens that'll be under the tents and will be constantly looping the same promotional stuff over and over again. But yeah.
All right. So this is what I want to know. I want to know that super secret entrance to the exhibit floor so that I can get there first and quickest to get that exclusive. All right. I know you know it, and you're going to tell us right now. This is going to be an exclusive.
Be an exhibitor.
Right. Exactly. Get an exhibitor badge.
Yeah, that's how I've done it in the past. Where when I used to have a bunch of people that had a table, and I even though I had a press badge, they gave me an exhibitor badge for just a moment to get me in and help set up the table. And then I was able to wander around and do what I needed to do press-wise. But yeah, press doesn't get any. If anybody has the idea that press gets any kind of special treatment, we get free tickets. That's about it.
Yeah, yeah. The only people that get free, like special treatment, is like the Entertainment Weeklies or the People magazines that show up.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So you're not going to tell us? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I actually honestly don't know. Other than getting that exhibitor badge, I wish I did know.
Yeah, well, and I was talking. We talked about this before, and so my first Comic-Con, I got that. That was kind of the big Tron year, and there was that Tron arcade box with the figure in it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I have one. Shawn has one, which is crazy because there was only 1,500 of them made. Which you think about that in today's Comic-Con, standards, and it would be like near impossible to get. But we've got one. I remember going in sales and trying to get to the show. Yep, Shawn's got it. There you go. Wait, hold on, Shawn. Let me show that. There you go.
That was a tough one.
I'd take mine down, but I have all my badges hanging from it. Wait, let me show you. Let me see if you can see. There's my wall of.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so there's my Tron. You see that with my Oswald ears, and there's all my badges hanging from it, right?
That's cool.
Yeah. So put that back. Okay, there you go. The one thing I experienced is, so I would go through sales for the first 3 days, and get down there, and all of a sudden the line's capped. I'm like, I'm right in front of the line. I can't figure it out. And then I found out there was this other entrance to the exhibit hall that was over if you go around Ballroom 20. And I did that the last day, and there was like nobody there. And I was right in front, like 2 people away from the escalators. And I was able to get down there, and that's how I scored it. So that's my super secret entrance.
Oh, you mean like the fan club area?
No, it's off. It's right hooks around Ballroom 20, but that's changed too because that's totally packed now. And but yeah, I'm with you. That was like the way, and now it's like it hooks around all the way almost to sales by the time too. So it's still probably a better route some days, but there's been a few times we've even ended up going to sales because so many people know the secret way now from all the sharing and everything.
Yeah. All right, we've got a question from Twitter. Clark Ken T says, why are so many companies offering exclusives online to everyone else? And I've seen that a lot. Like people say, if you can get it outside of the convention, it's not an exclusive. What's your take on that, Doug?
Oh, well, I don't do a whole lot of exclusives myself anymore. I do occasionally, but the company went under. But
Right.
but yeah, I mean, it seems kind of cheesy that they offer it they offer it online as well. If anything, I mean, they should vary it slightly if you're going to just offer it online, if it's a Matty collector or whatever, as well as something that's on the floor. Maybe some slight variant in packaging should make the difference.
Yeah. What's your take on this, Shawn?
You know, that's like that's totally like one of the most controversial topics in collecting stuff, because I totally get it. Like, you're a Marvel Legends collector, you're a completionist, and you live in Australia, and you're, you know, it's just you're going to either pay $300 for it online or you're not going to get it. So I think like the best solution usually is when they do kind of one-off things. Like a lot of companies do that kind of the odd variation, so it's not something that's necessarily part of like the central canon. You know, it's a pink version of something, or it's got extra, you know, shoes or whatever. But I think things like, for example, what Hasbro's done with the when they did the big Death Star with the 2 minifigures that you couldn't get anywhere else. You know, as a lot of collectors are completionists, and now that there's 2 figures that are part of the line that they can't ever get outside of paying, you know, $400 for them or whatever, or what Hasbro did with the Carbonite Han last year was really tough, because it's like there was just no chance for those people, and so it makes it really tough. But at the same time, yeah, there's something to be said for the experience of battling it out, and you're paying all this money to get there, and there should be something special about that. So I just always think the ultimate is to give people something there that's varied enough that your collection's not going to have a huge hole in it if you don't have it. That it's kind of an add-on, kind of cool, like the companies that always do the, you know, the special San Diego packaging, you know, to do the Deadpool taco truck, you know, is a cool thing of kind of a special thing, but that you can get the Deadpool somewhere else. But even that one, there was figures in it that you couldn't get elsewhere. So
yeah. So we've got a couple more questions from our listeners. Janine Lucero says, Twitter seems to be a must to keep up with what's going on. And I think, Doug, you had mentioned that, you know, with your experience in Hall H. What are the best Twitter accounts to follow? Doug, what do you follow when you're at Comic-Con?
Gosh, I better check Twitter real quick.
I was going to say, please say us. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, the blog, the unofficial blog, yeah. The Confluence also, I do. There's just a lot of the sites I look at normally. There is a weird little... I'm not as close to you guys as I'd like to be. I want to connect a little bit more, but I mean, I know back and forth we used to share stuff on Twitter, especially as we get closer to con time. There's a few other names I can think of, but you guys already probably know them better than I do.
But do you follow companies, or I mean, like, you know, because like Marvel has an app now that will alert people when they're giving stuff out at the booth, for example. I mean, what are some of those accounts that you follow to kind of stay up to date, like WB or whatever?
Yeah, if you definitely want to make sure that if you're wanting special exclusives or giveaways, things, it's the idea of sites like yours and others are providing those lists. I imagine Marvel is one of those that says, hey, you know, come by here, Stan Lee's signing for 5 minutes, you know, do that. So obviously it's part of the preparation of knowing what you want, what you're excited about. If you're looking for a certain toy, you like a certain movie or a certain character, hunt them down and follow them. Every major company has a Twitter account now. If they don't, they have nothing to offer, I guess.
Yeah, and you know, that's probably a big difference as well from the 2010 edition to the 2014 edition. Is, I mean, Twitter was still not, was it that huge back then? I guess it was something, but not as big as it.
It started getting big in 2008.
Yeah,
I think is when it really started growing.
But Doug, Doug, do you cover Twitter in your book, or is that something that you feel like that's going to change so you don't go into specific accounts, or how did you handle that?
Well, I know that when I had the book, I also had a mobile app at the time. I don't have it this year, but I had a mobile app at the time which had a Twitter feed, so that if you downloaded it, it was free. You'd be able to see all my posts as, oh, come over here, they're giving away free hats of something, you know. go over here. So it was also I would retweet things other people would put out there. So yeah, it was even 2010, as you said, 2008. It was still being used as a hunt and redeem kind of tool.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to talk about celebrities, and you mentioned it before about Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg at the back in 2004 and Shaun of the Dead. And you could just walk right up and get an autograph.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people go to Comic-Con because they want to get close with their favorite celebrities. What's some advice that you can give to get up close and personal, if you will?
If they're out in the street, if at all possible, leave them alone. I think they would appreciate that. I can't say that I've always listened to my own advice, but there's been moments where you have to judge the situation as it happens. If they're just sort of hanging out and they're waiting on somebody, and you can just come up to them and say, "Hey, how you doing? I love you on this show or this movie. Great." Right. You don't necessarily want to beg them for autographs or anything else, but saying hi and being friendly, I think they might appreciate that. And a lot of the times they're happy to take a picture in certain situations, as long as it doesn't draw flies like everybody else wanting to come after them. So,
well, you've got to feel that they've kind of have to expect that. I mean, they're walking into that atmosphere and that situation where they are going to be swarmed by their fans. So you got to figure that they've kind of set that expectation for themselves that yes, I'm going to go out in public. Yes, I'm going to take a lot of pictures. So I'll be acceptance of that. It'll be the celebrities that don't want anything to do with it that they'll order room service and never leave their hotel, right? Yeah.
Right.
So all right. Well, I'm curious. What's your favorite celebrity encounter over the years?
There used to be a situation. It was a running joke with a friend of mine and I who used to share a hotel back in the early days when I was going. I would always run into Joss Whedon everywhere. Just like we'd walk up to something and there's Joss Whedon. Hey, but my friend would never see him. I'd be like, "Oh, there just goes Joss Whedon." He's like, "Where?"
It's like Snuffleupagus.
Yeah. I mean, I come out one morning. He's still up in the hotel room. I come down to the lobby at the Hilton, and there's Joss Whedon standing at the bottom of the stairs with his arms raised, and Adam Baldwin is descending into his arms, into a hug. And I'm just like, this is a Comic-Con moment. You can't see this anywhere else. It was just a beautiful, fun thing. And it's rare that I actually will say, "Hey," because I'll just look like a stalker because of all the times it happened. So,
right.
And it was never me following. It just happened.
That's funny. That's really funny. I'm curious, James. What's your favorite celebrity encounter at Comic-Con? Oop, he's got to go off of mute. Did I catch him?
Oh no, I
there you go.
Unmute the microphone. Strangely enough, I have two. Involves Joss Whedon and Adam Baldwin. Sitting around in 2005 with a bunch of browncoats after leaving the con, running the browncoat booth, and it's like midnight-ish, sitting around at the Hilton lobby, kind of just chatting, and who comes walking in with the latest Harry Potter that just came out under his arm, but Joss Whedon comes over and recognizes some of the people that were sitting around and comes over and says hi, and then, "See you later, I'm going to go read my book."
I was in that bookstore, by the way. I was in that bookstore, by the way, while he was waiting to purchase that book, surrounded by thousands of Potterheads at that Borders down the street from Comic-Con. I was there. I'm the only one who. There might have been one or two of the people who recognized him came up to him, but I took a picture from a distance of him just looking at his book, and it's on my Flickr site. It was just weird that you mentioned that he was in line with everybody else. No, but he couldn't do that today.
No, but it's crazy over the 10 years how many things that we've done, like passing, because you look familiar, so we've obviously passed each other in the halls.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Wow, that's really funny.
What was your second one?
Actually, it was coming back from dinner on, I can't remember if it was a Friday or Saturday night, but going up the escalator in the Bayfront to the Bayfront lobby and hearing someone singing very loudly "Fat Bottom Girls," and then looking up and coming down the escalator from somewhere was Adam Baldwin, and then slightly behind him, Zach Levi, who was the one singing, and having him recognize me and say, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing." He's like, "Come on," and then drags me to the Wrath of Khan party that was going on and let me go in with them and the whole Chuck cast, which was pretty awesome.
Wow, that's cool. That's really cool. Shawn, how about you? Do you have one?
And I'd say in a similar vein to what Doug said, just like that quintessential, Comic-Con thing was, it was two but very similar situations. Is LL Cool J and Mark Echo, and it just to me was like that's what Comic-Con has become. It's like it was kind of like what are they doing here, and very kind of surreal. But both were at different times at the CBS booth, and so LL Cool J was there for NCIS, I guess, and Mark Echo had done a shirt for Dexter. But it was both just situations where it's like I wasn't looking for them. I didn't wait in a long line. I was just wandering by, and it's just like they were there, and there was no line, and I just walked up and got a free autograph and shook hands and took a picture and left. And it was just like that only will happen at San Diego Comic-Con. It's not going to happen anywhere else. And I would have never sought out either of them anywhere else. It was just because I was at San Diego, I was on the exhibit hall floor, and they were both there. And it always stands out as kind of just that, that's what Comic-Con is. You just, no matter how much you plan, you don't know what kind of cool things are going to find you once you get there.
Yeah. I know I told this story to Shawn. I think I told it last year, and it was actually I was wearing the shirt. So if you guys see my Infinity Gauntlet shirt, so I was staying at the Marriott, and I was in the hotel, and I think it was Sunday, and I'm going down, and George Perez is in the hotel in the elevator with me, and he looks over at me, he looks at my shirt, he goes, "Nice shirt." I was like, "Yeah, thanks," and then he gets real close, and he starts looking at the art on the shirt, and he goes, "Is that? No, that's not mine." Like he's actually looking, because George Perez was the one that he did the first couple of issues of Infinity Gauntlet. He didn't finish it, and he's looking. He's like, "Oh, but nice shirt, but yeah, that's I forgot who took it over." But he's like, "Yeah, that's somebody else's." So I was like, "That's pretty cool." That was a neat one. And the other one I want to share. So as James was in line for the Firefly panel, you guys see that? So I had to go do. I did a television thing for one of the. I think it was NBC LA, and so because of that, I missed waiting in line for the Firefly 10th anniversary panel. So after that was done, I'm going back to my hotel room, and lo and behold, there's like nobody in the lobby, and who do I see in front of me is Summer Glau and probably an assistant, maybe from the network or whoever it was, kind of showing her to her room, and I just walked up her real nice and I said, "Summer, can I get a picture?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, of course." And so there it is. So
nice.
Yeah, and it's like
he texted or showed it to him, and he's like, "Look what I got."
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I was at the panel," and I said, "Oh yeah, well look what I got." And he's like, "Oh yo." So yeah, Comic-Con's awesome. I have a story
where I struck fear into a cast of Community at one point. Some of the cast where. Since the show's not on in the air anymore, it was on NBC, and they would stay at the hotel next to the NBC studios, which is up at the Horton Plaza. I was staying at that hotel at the time a couple years ago, and I would come and go all the time and see Chevy Chase with his family, just going to dinner every once in a while. And one night, I think it was Saturday night, everybody was heading off to the Cowboys and Aliens screening down the road. I come back to the hotel carrying one of those gigantic bags, step through the doors, and there's this beautiful blonde woman with just a great little dress, and she looks fantastic. Turns around, it's Britta, and I'm just like, "Hi," and and then all of a sudden, but I don't like dork out in front of her. I just sort of keep walking and go, "Hi," and she gives me a smile, and Chevy comes to save her. He just sort of goes, "Hey, come here, Jillian. Let's go." And I keep walking, and I go towards further into the lobby, and out steps Yvette, Craig, Shirley, from the bar, and she just stops in her tracks and stares. She's like, "Oh crap! One of the nerds has found us." Basically, the look on her face, because I looked like complete dork. I had the giant bag and everything else. I certainly wasn't anybody official, but yes, dorks were staying in your hotel. And I just waved to her and kept walking. So
that's really funny.
Terrified them.
Well, so I want to keep kind of segue from celebrities into autographs. So autographs are another big thing that people go to Comic-Con for. There's a lot of celebrities signing autographs there. What kind of tips can you give, Doug, about trying to get autographs with your favorite celebrity?
Well, again, it depends on the types of celebrities you're looking for, because obviously some of them are specifically timed, and they give out tickets through lotteries depending on the booth and the situation. Others are just sitting upstairs, very lonely, and they're not charging either. But they'll sell you something that they can sign. But it all depends what you're looking for. The Marvel booth usually has whoever's popular in theaters. I do not doubt that they're going to have the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy sitting in that booth at some point this year. It all comes down to timing and knowing what their schedule is, and of course, like we said, using Twitter for them to announce those things.
Yeah. So we have a question from Mike Nelson, who says, between the leapfroggers and run-up for autographs, the panel transitions are chaos. Any tips? So what does that mean? That means
for in the big rooms like Hall H and Bar 20.
in between panels, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's best to bring friends. If you don't have anybody with you, make friends. If you can't make friends, it's going to be a much more difficult situation, because you want to, obviously, leapfrogging requires you also to jump to somewhere else while still maintaining your original seat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to mention about that is, remember that service sucks. So you need to rely on line of sight and always be aware of where your friends are, and keep your eye up and not in your phone when you are doing the leapfrog.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Service does suck, and we're talking about not like wait service. We're talking about cell phone service.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any tips on preserving cell phone life or anything like that, Doug?
One of the things I'm going to be adding to the next version of the book is sort of a technology list, or at least an updated version of the technology list, making sure that if you do have any kind of signal, use something like Evernote, which is a great little syncing app that allows you to just put whatever notes you need about what you need to remember, what you need to share with people. Say somebody says, okay, there's a signing at 6 o'clock out at the Hyatt. We got to get there by 5. Those are the kind of things that you want to be able to save, and maybe you might want to be able to sync in and update it from your computer when you get back to your hotel room later that night. Stuff like that. But when it comes to your cell phone, keeping it alive, I use a Mophie charger. Hopefully they'll give me money for saying that. But they
you're on a podcast, so they're going to give us the money, right?
There you go. Everybody gets Mophies. You get a Mophie. You get a Mophie. But it's a great, powerful. There's some cheap, crappy ones you can get too, but they're good in a pinch. Always make sure. The hardest part is keeping that charged as well. So my phone usually can last a good half a day if I'm not tweeting or updating. It's usually dead by noon if I am active. And that charger saves my life. You plug it in. You don't have to find a wall socket. You don't have to run out to the car and charge it.
Yeah. Wall sockets are impossible to find because, like the security doesn't even let you use half of them because they say it's like a fire hazard or something like that. Yeah. Real pain in the butt.
They don't want you sitting still in the lobby, at least. That's for sure.
Right. Okay. So. We talked a lot about a lot of different things at Comic-Con. Do you have a treasured tip that in your book that you want to share that no one else has mentioned? Like, all these fan sites, all these tips, all these guides. Is there one thing that somebody hasn't mentioned that you're like, I've got that in my book?
Well, it's sort of in my book. And if you read the first one, it's only useful to a certain number of people. it's about parking, and I've been lucky enough to have a great parking space every year, and I pay a total of $60 for the entire week, which doesn't include 2 nights at the hotel I'm staying at in most people's cases, because I stay downtown. I stay in the gas lamp. There's a parking garage that I use that's pretty much within sight of the convention center, and I get it at a super discount, but it only works if you're there and you keep the car for the entire week. Because the moment you leave and you head back to your hotel in the far reaches of San Diego and then come back, guess what? You pay the full price. I arrive at this lot, which I don't want to give away because everybody's going to use it and suck up all the spaces, but if you buy the book, I do offer a little email where people can just email me and say, hey, I got the book, and let me know what that is, and I give them all the details and how to get into it. But you got to use it. I will tell you this: you need to get into that parking space probably by 1 o'clock on Wednesday, and leave somewhere after 5 on Sunday. And like I said, I've walked away with $60 in parking for the entire week, and I keep doing it every year.
Wow, that is an excellent deal. That is an excellent deal. Wow.
It's amazing. I luck out, and every year I try to go early. Sometimes I go like a week before just to talk to somebody there, and usually they have no idea what I'm talking about. But I've gone there, and I verify with them what the rate is by the time I park, and I verify what the rate is. I hand them the little ticket before I leave the parking garage, so I make sure I have enough cash. Because I've had a friend who showed up an hour later than I did that Wednesday afternoon. He paid $120. I paid $60.
Wow. Wow.
So,
hey, that's the difference between getting that exclusive that you want and not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to share, this is cool. Janet R. said she just pre-ordered Doug's book for her husband. She likes something tangible he can hold, read, and have on hand in case of spotty service. So thank you, Janet. That's cool.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. So that's a perfect segue then for to talk about some of the upcoming projects. So we talked about the new launch of the updated version of the book. What else do you have going on, Doug?
Well, to me, it's not just about San Diego Comic-Con. I love San Diego Comic-Con. It's my mecca. It's where I go. It's where I live. I can't be without it. But the con culture itself is something that I really, really enjoy. I love going to the little cons that are about comics. So I liked going everywhere. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a con community, basically a thing that connects all geek culture, and it's called theconmunity.com.
Cool.
And it's a little bit behind because I've been slammed with doing my final updates on the books before it gets final edits. But for the most part,
everybody.
Yep. Thanks. It's just me. Right now, I'm just one more site that puts out more news about pop culture, which is great. There's plenty of those that do that, though. My goal with this is to hopefully point people towards the creative people at those cons. Sort of create a web version of the cons that we love to go to and make the connections between all those people. It started with wanting to help a lot of my artist friends get more visibility outside of a convention. Some of them can never make it to Dragon Con or New York Comic Con, but if they could have some sort of visibility that points them to their site, somebody might be looking for, I need somebody to draw an anime version of Deadpool. Well, why don't you do a search on my site? You can't do that just yet, though. It's not that updated. But the idea is that eventually somebody could be able to search for Deadpool anime and find all these artists who do that kind of thing, and they could commission it, or they could, they could end up finding, that person is going to be at the Long Beach Comic Con, they're going to be at Dragon Con, or they're going to be at MegaCon, and maybe I can go to that show, and maybe I'll get that there from them. So it's really about supporting the creative people. It's about supporting cosplayers, fan clubs, and all the people that help make up the community that we see and interact with at the conventions, even when we don't have the ability to go to one.
Yeah,
So.
that's excellent, excellent, and that's it's the conmunity.com. So CONMU. Can I spell? UNITY. Yeah.
You need the community. If you drop the somebody else, you go somewhere else. But yeah.
Very cool. I'm really excited to see that take off. So
it's in its early stages, so there's a lot to be done yet. So
yeah.
Keep an eye.
Okay. Yeah. So real quick, a question from our viewers: are you guys recording this to put on YouTube so I can show this to my friends later? But specifically, my brother-in-law, since this will be his first Comic-Con. Yes, this will be available on YouTube and preserved for all eternity. So. So you can watch this later and record it, and my kids, when they're 16 years old, they'll make fun of me for being on the internet.
I'm going to put it on my sites. So
sweet, very cool. All right, Shawn and James, did you have any last questions for Doug?
I was just curious with the way information does move so fast and everything now. Do you have any thoughts on what the updates going forward to the survival guide will look like? Or is it something that you're kind of planning every 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, or just kind of get this one out and see where it goes from there?
Yeah, I'm going to see. I'm not going to have one in 2015. I can tell you that right now. Not that I'm planning on it anyway. If somehow there's a demand for it, yeah. But I don't see. The con does change and does transform, but what I write and the way I write it, it has the ability to last. Even the old book still holds up about 85%, so it still has a lot of useful information in it.
Cool.
But yeah.
Cool.
But this next year, I'll put my focus on making a mobile app that will complement it. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Doug, the correct answer to that question was you were going to build a holodeck for Comic-Con. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody, come over to my place.
Yeah, James, anything from you?
No.
Okay, cool. So, Doug, you're welcome to stick around, but I wanted to plug the book again, so you can check that out at SDCCsurvivalguide.com. Is that right?
Yep.
And you can find Doug on Twitter at SDCCsurvival, and also check out his new website, theconmunity.com.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yep. All right, and I'm glad that. Like I said, you've been such a help for me personally, so it's awesome to finally meet you and have you on the podcast. Oh, you're welcome to stick around. We're going to talk about the news, so if you want to stick around or go, it's up to you. But,
yeah, I'll hang out. Awesome. I do appreciate you guys, the support you guys given. It's just, I don't really see that. I get a lot of nice things. People email me, but I really appreciate you guys having me on and give me the encouragement to keep doing it. So.
Excellent. All right, and it seems like a lot of our readers and viewers, a lot of them are coming into Comic-Con because, like I said, 2010, that's when I got the book. There's a lot of folks that are just coming into Comic-Con because it's getting more and more popular. You're getting more and more people cycling in. So the more people we can introduce to books like yours, the better. So very cool. All right, let's see. Let's talk about the news. So we have the news is starting to heat up. James, do you feel it? Do you feel it, Shawn? Do you feel all exclusive news?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I was coughing up a lung.
Oh, are you okay?
Yeah. I just drank some water wrong. Apparently.
Okay. So it's funny because it seems like it's coming in waves. So like right now and it's weird. It's different from other years where there were some panel leaks and stuff like that. We have really heard nothing about panels this year, but it's been all exclusives. And I tend to think that in the next week or two, we're going to start hearing more about panels and less about exclusives because all the news is out there pretty much, right?
Right. Yeah.
So last week, let's just start at last week. We were talking about the Diamond exclusives. There's a ton of them. I don't know if I even want to go through all of them, but the Diamond Select exclusives. They even had their comic variants and things like that they posted online. Any of these stick out for you, Shawn?
No, I mean that's what I was gonna say. Actually, this week is really this is to me like the week of examples of what goes on with exclusives is there's so many, and there's just about every booth at Comic-Con or every other booth at Comic-Con is going to have some kind of variant edition of this or that, whether it's the smallest designer toy or a comic cover or whatever. So it really does get overwhelming, and so this is really the time of year to start. At least for me, it's really a time of kind of making that list of like what's my top tier, and then what's that second tier if there's money left over or I can't get to things.
Right.
And just as a reminder, so many, and this week's a good example of that, is a lot of those things do come up afterwards in the aftermarket for not all that expensive. I mean, that's not to be said for all things. Like the Hasbro stuff will be crazy and stuff, but not all exclusives are equal in terms of their aftermarket fierceness in terms of acquiring them.
Yeah, I have to say, when you're talking about aftermarket and not paying a lot, I'm kind of proud of this. So when I went to Comic-Con, remember Hasbro were giving out those posters of the Revenge of the Jedi, and they had the action figures. Remember that?
Yeah.
I used to have that on my son's wall for years, and it was something that my wife had just kind of like taped up, and it was falling off, and it kept on getting wrinkly or whatever. So I ordered, somebody was selling them on eBay, and I think I might have paid $10 for 2 of those, and I framed them because they're double-sided, and so now they're hanging in my son's bedroom. Because one side's all the figures with the classic blister packs, and the other side is that really cool Darth Vader and Luke doing the lightsaber battle with the Revenge of the Jedi kind of classic poster in the background. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's definitely. I mean, for this week, looking, kind of at the list, the diamond stuff. There's obviously some cool mini mates, and if people are watching on the video cast there, you can see the variety of things there. But the things in the last couple of days have actually been some of the coolest to me, like that the Batman '66 shag print. I thought was really
was cool.
That's really cool, and it's very. I mean, Disney does a lot of shag stuff, so that's kind of an area for me that I like quite a bit. And then the Hasbro, the Transformers Dinobots set. It's like I'm not even a huge Transformer collector, but that looks really amazing. Like an old school '80s play set with your Dinobots is pretty awesome. But not an '80s price at $160, but but an '80s looking set, that's for sure.
I remember my brother getting the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. And I think that was only $100. Yeah. And that thing was like 6 feet long.
The USS Flag, right? Yeah, that thing's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. That's like $1,000 or something now out of the package. So that was Yeah,
that's crazy. And I'm showing this just got announced today. Can you guys see this? The Dinobot set. So it's the Transformers Dinobot action figure collection. It was announced by IGN, and so they got tons of pictures. James, I know you're going to stand in line for this.
Yeah. No, I am a Transformers fan, though, and that is a really cool set.
Yeah.
It's cool. Look at those. Are you guys stoked to see the movie at all?
Heck yeah.
Me too.
It's going to be so awful. It's going to be awesome.
I think the three of us are on the exact same page with that. It's like, it just, having Dinobots in it and everything else is it's going to be a must-see for us. And the other Transformer movies weren't. I mean, you saw them, but it wasn't. But this I'm actually really excited about, even though I haven't loved the other movies. So.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the Transformer movies. I think they're really good popcorn movies. So even though they're silly and kind of goofy or whatever, it's like that last Transformers movie, that last hour of them in Chicago and fighting, it was just like the most intense hour of action I've ever seen in a movie. So it's like, how can you damn the Transformers movies when you have that kind of awesomeness at the end,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's Symbiote Studios announced exclusive. They do a lot of video game exclusives, so they do these like little minifigures. I don't know if I want to show these real quick.
Yeah, I saw those. I'm not really familiar with them.
Yeah, and they did a bunch last year. They did like a bunch of Doom ones last year, Doom and Skyrim and some other ones. So there's like little minifigures. And this one comes with it says it comes with a pet, but it's like a DLC code for the pet in the game. So that's kind of a cool little cross promotion.
Right.
and they're doing there's another game called Warframe, and it seemed and they announced, but they didn't show it, that they're going to do a Warframe figure like that as well. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's cool stuff. Other things that you didn't mention, that you said the Huckleberry one, and this is funny because we talked about this. This was one that they kind of hinted at when I was at Toy Fair this year.
Oh, okay.
So we finally got to see it today. It's pre-orders alive. It's $500 though, right? Isn't it $500?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But they're only making 150, and
Right.
and they said because it's such an exclusive, and they want to make sure that people don't get it ruined while they're at the show, they're just selling it online, and they're just gonna ship it to you. So that's one of those where it's a con exclusive, but it's not necessarily you have to go to the convention to get it.
Right.
And then Entertainment Earth has been slowly announcing their exclusives. The latest one today was a coaster set, Star Trek coaster set, which actually looked pretty cool.
It looks really cool. It looks totally retro. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, you want to talk about the Maddie pre-sale real quick, right?
Yeah, just real quick, just to make sure people know that it is. So Monday is for subscribers, and Tuesday is open to everyone. So I think the subscribers already know the drill, and they're really in that culture. But for every year, there's people that maybe all they want to do is get that one Monster High doll, or an Ever After doll this year, or whatever. And so Tuesday to be ready, and we actually have our annual Maddie SDCC pre-sale guide ready to go, but we're waiting for last details from Maddie before we send it out. So hopefully we'll get those like in the next 24 hours, so that people can have that over the weekend to look at. But yeah, just like everything with Comic-Con, I mean, there's just kind of that same vein of be ready for it. And really important, the thing that we found the most trouble that people have is, one, maybe not having their order ready. And so if you're ordering things for friends, if you're going to order 3 of the Monster High dolls or whatever, make sure that you're ready in advance. And secondly, make sure to be ready to pay on the spot. And that's something that's come up in the past. People have thought, oh, well, I'll pay when I get to Comic-Con, but you're paying on the spot. So you need to make sure that you have money in your account and your card's ready to go, and you've got everything ready to buy on the spot. And then you'll pick it up at the show, and we'll have that all in the guide and everything. But just a reminder that in the past, you have to pick it up before their Sunday deadline, and if you don't pick it up, they do not refund the money, and they give your toys away. So it's a pretty serious commitment there. And going back to something that was brought up earlier when talking with Doug, is just about the use of Twitter and stuff. Is a big question always is, well, when's the best time to pick up? Because I have fallen victim, and I know a lot of people have fallen victim to doing the Maddie pre-sale and still being in line 3 hours waiting for your stuff, because the room is, a messy place. And that's really where Twitter comes in. And so, during the con, we can retweet line updates and stuff. But the last couple years using Twitter, it's been like less than a 5-minute wait. So it's just really important to kind of know those times and study that up. But like I said, we're still waiting for the last info from Maddie, and then we'll have a really kind of clean guide set up to just help you out. But make sure you have that money in your account, or do some work this weekend mowing lawns or whatever to get some money in your checking account and be ready for it. So
yeah, some of these exclusives, you got to mow a lot of lawns.
Yeah. Well, and people always ask, like, I've got a few questions about, like, well, what's going to be the hot exclusive? And Monster High is going to be hot. That's been hot every year, and it never really goes down in price. It just gets pricier as time goes on. So that goes on. And besides that, it's just you don't know.
Anything Hasbro.
Yeah, definitely. Just it kind of depends as you get there, and things. And across for Maddie, Monster High and probably Ever After will be the big things there. And Hasbro, it's pretty much almost everything. And the others, it just depends. Like last year, that Jason from NECA was a really big deal, or things like when you talked about Tron, things will blow up. And so that's again where Twitter can come in handy to kind of get updates from people across the floor, because there are things you can wait and pick up on Sunday without a line, and there's a lot of things that you can't, though.
Right. Cool. All right. Anything from you, John or James? I said Shawn and James at the same time.
I don't get very many exclusives, so I let Shawn handle all that.
Yeah. He does a good job with that for sure. All right. So I want to move right to the panel news, because there was one big story that came out last week that I want to talk about with all you guys, and it's this whole DC thing, right? So there was a leak from used to be Deadline, but now Nikki Fink has her own website, and it was her second post on her website. The first one was, "This is my new website." The second one was, "Hey, I got DC's plans for Comic-Con," and there were like 7 movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. So, I mean, what do you guys think about this? And I think even today there was a report that Ben Affleck's going to get his own Batman movie. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, that came out.
Why wouldn't he?
I know, but it wasn't listed here. So, I mean, they said there's some stuff in flux. You know, I don't question the authenticity of this. You know, but you know, do you think that we're gonna see more of this at Comic-Con, or you know, what's your take on it?
I think that DC needs to do something like this at Comic-Con, and based on what they did last year with just the announcement of Batman Superman, I have a feeling that they will do something. Yeah. They may be scrambling to figure out what to do now that their list has been revealed, and it's basically been confirmed by at least one extra source that that is the real list. Whether they are supposed to be announcing it at Comic-Con or not, who knows?
Oh, who is that? Who is that? Who confirmed it?
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, he wouldn't know anything though.
Yeah, no, not at all.
He only writes their comics and yeah.
And hangs out with Ben Affleck and probably hangs out on the set and whatever. But they need to do something, and I think they will do something, but now I think they have to figure out what to do if it's no longer going to be a surprise to announce. Because they were really pissed last year when Batman Superman was announced half an hour before before it was released on the panel, and everyone knew online. And that pissed them off. So, you know, you got to figure something's going. Someone's heads are rolling over at WB.
Yeah.
What was interesting to me about the list, well, obviously the selection, like having Shazam on there as such an early idea, or having you know, Green Lantern, Flash team up. But at the same time, if you look like with what Marvel's done, is kind of making it so you have kind of your fantasy universe with Thor, and you have your noir crime, you know, type stuff with Cap and stuff. And if you look, those movies kind of break down to fit the same way as, you know, the Wonder Woman can be kind of the fantasy, and the Shazam are in that fantasy realm, and it can go that Lord of the Rings feel or whatever, or Thor feel. And even though it's Green Lantern, Flash, it could be a little bit more of a, you know, Barry Allen detective type of a, you know, street level thing. And so yeah, that would be awesome. That would be really awesome if it all comes through.
I think with Shazam, what they're thinking is looking back to Iron Man and seeing how a non-A-list, everybody knows him character is what technically launched the cinematic universe for Marvel, and maybe they're hoping that this kind of gives everyone an idea of, these are all the characters that we have too, and we have cool stuff. And I'm actually, the one I'm looking forward to the most, besides Sandman, I don't know even if it's going to be connected to the rest of them, is the Flash Green Lantern, because I think they can make that one into a really good, fun, buddy cop kind of movie.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to that.
Right. Well, in the Shazam one, it's interesting because the New 52, Jeff Johns did a really cool backup story that ran for, you know, however many issues at the end of Justice League, and it's a modern day kind of Billy Batson is kind of a bratty little jerk of a kid that gets these powers, and it was really like you could totally see it in a cinematic way. You could see it being very relatable. It's not gushy and cheesy kind of old school Captain Marvel. It's much more modernized, and you could see it, just like what James said, you could see it going that Iron Man route in terms of kind of a non-conventional B or C level character that all of a sudden captures the hearts and minds of America and becomes the next big thing. So it'd be awesome to see.
Yeah, and no Ryan Reynolds.
And they have a rather large uphill battle, though. They have obviously the big three, the Holy Trinity, whatever you want to call it, with you know, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, but they have an uphill battle from fatigue of having, you know, 3 Batman movies in the last decade, so many other superhero movies. They have to be good, they have to be high quality, and they have to make sense.
Yeah, it's funny, James, because we mentioned this a couple weeks ago with Jermaine, how last year you asked, does DC have the patience to reveal their cinematic universe, as in, they don't want to go full on Justice League. They want to do a little bit at a time and then build up to it like the Avengers did. But now you're saying they don't have the time to have the patience,
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, they're really just going full hog on.
7 movies in 3 years?
I don't know. Doug, you saw this, right?
Yeah.
What's your take on all this?
It's definitely, it seems like they're overcompensating for something.
Yeah,
they're playing catch up no matter what. They are, and it's an uphill battle because, again, Marvel and DC, the way they format their characters just seems to be very different.
Yeah. So you're a Hall H kind of guy, because you said last year you were in Hall H all day Saturday. Would you be in Hall H to see something like this?
Yeah, definitely. And again, Warner Brothers usually starts out the day somewhat, and Marvel usually ends the day, and it's usually whoever gets the biggest news piece at the end when it's all over.
Right.
So,
right.
And that's what they had last year. It was Batman and Superman, and it was all the other Marvel stuff, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
One thing about WB also, real quick, is like a year or two ago when Harry Potter was ending, everyone was, like, what's Warner Brothers' next franchise? They're out of franchises, with Dark Knight ending, Harry Potter ending. They didn't have anything. They didn't have this big. They weren't the big billion-dollar studio anymore if they didn't have anything coming up, and it looks like this is what they're trying to do.
James, you're forgetting about Neverending Story?
What?
Well, I was going to say, too, just looking at, and obviously TV is a whole different area, but the way they've greenlit so much with Constantine and iZombie from Vertigo, Gotham, they're really, all of a sudden, they're like, as Doug said, maybe they're overcompensating, but they're greenlighting a lot of stuff and just running with it. So then this is interesting because they can kind of say, well, we're not doing the Marvel thing because we're doing one of this, and then we're doing a team up, and then we're doing they're doing kind of their own thing, but it'll just be interesting.
Yeah.
They did Arrow really well. Gotham's getting good buzz from people who've seen it. So it's. I wish kind of that they could ground some of their characters on television to have a longer, broader story to create a foundation for them, rather than blowing their wad just on 2 hours of special effects like they did with Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So,
right. Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We've got that. We've got Marvel. We talked about this with Jermaine. We have, hopefully, Star Wars, something Star Wars. It's going to be a big year in Hall H for sure.
I keep telling my friends I have a big theory about this year at Hall H, and it's completely out of my own brain. I have no proof whatsoever. But my belief is that this could be the one and only chance that we'll ever see the cast of Star Wars on stage together.
Wow.
You think about it, because I have theories about who's going to live and who's going to die in Episode 7, but this might be the only time they might truck out everybody. They might even get Kenny Baker and Anthony Daniels and Peter Mayhew and who knows. Get Carrie Harrison and Mark out there as well, and the new young cast, like they did with X-Men Days of Future Past last year. Fox did that, but if they did that with Disney rolled that out, it would be the most orgasmic moment in Comic-Con history.
It would.
Yeah, that would trump 2010, that's for sure.
To put it lightly. Well, yeah, and then, obviously Han Solo, or Harrison Ford, broke his leg, so who knows what that does to shooting, and, maybe he'll need to take a break in San Diego to recuperate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, after all, he's only got 2 movies that'll be there, Expendables 3 and Star Wars.
He was super excited about being at the Ender's Game panel last year, because I saw him in that, and he was beaming. You could tell he was super excited about Comic-Con.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he made it very obvious that he was not excited. It was funny because it was almost like it was a caricature of him playing himself as the curmudgeon, and it was.
I think that's what he does. He plays that character whenever he's in front of a camera for press.
Yeah, funny.
He does that. Well, even when they made the joke of Jon Favreau putting him in handcuffs and dragging him out on stage for Cowboys and Aliens for the first time.
Right.
We're like, is that the guy who stabbed the other guy in the hall earlier?
That's funny. So, all right. So other panel news that we had this week. So Haven's going to be skipping Comic-Con this year. Looks like Helix will be back in some form. Both sci-fi shows. Grimm fans will be treated to special footage at Comic-Con. And then just what happened today, very exciting, Starz Outlander, which premieres on the network beginning of August sometime. That's going to have a red carpet premiere at Comic-Con. And you can actually enter now to get a for sweepstakes to win 2 tickets to go see the premiere with all the stars and the directors and all that good stuff. That's open until June 27th, and then winners are announced the July 1st. They're giving away 100 pairs of tickets, so 200 people. So that'll be cool. Mm-hmm. And that's off-site, by the way. So that's not in Comic-Con or in the convention. That's outside at the Spreckles Theater, which brings us a good segue about the off-site calendar. So we always want to remind our readers and viewers about our off-site calendar, which is brought to you by Eventbrite. So if you're looking at hosting a panel or an event at Comic-Con, Eventbrite will help you get your event up in a flash, no matter the shape or size of your event. With Eventbrite, you can create custom event pages, manage ticket sales, and spread the word to rally more comic and pop culture fans under one roof. So click on the links on our site, learn more about setting up your event with Eventbrite today. Obviously, we have our enchantment under the SDCC. That is happening preview night, July 23rd. That's a Wednesday. That's going to be at Henry's Pub, like we had announced earlier. And we're getting ready to start announcing the companies that are playing a part in the party this year. So we've got a few that are lined up. We're going to start announcing those via social media. So I think the first one I'm going to put out tomorrow on Facebook. So like our page on Facebook, check that out, and you'll be able to check out the first company. I'm very excited to announce it. Do you guys even know, Shawn and James?
You've said random things in the past, but I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
I usually say random things, though. What's the difference? Other events worth mentioning. Shawn, I want to bring this up because you helped us out with this one. The 4th annual Star Wars Fan Breakfast.
Yeah.
This kind of blew up again, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that's one of the ones where you can most easily see maybe like the amount of readers that and followers for the blog and stuff is because that was just it was a good strong little event the first 2 years, and then last year when we ran that story it blew up and they had to have a waiting list, and now this year they had to, like everything that we do with whether it's parking or anything else, they had to come up with a new system. So they said that they were going to kind of have a special little podcast and have it on their forums to let people know what's going on, and they tried to give priority to people that went last year, and then it when it went live, I believe, what was that, Monday night, I think, or Tuesday night? Whatever it was like, 9 o'clock at night or something, and I put the story up, and I think by, like, 9:30 or 10, whatever it was, like within an hour and a half, they were well into the waiting list, and then they closed the waiting list. So if you were on the East Coast and not staying up to crazy hours, you got blanked because when you woke up in the morning, it was all filled up. And they said on their podcast they figured it would fill up by the end of the week. So the fact that it was done in that hour or two, just kind of shows how many people are hungry for Comic-Con news and watching our Twitter feed, because we were the only people, to my knowledge, that were running it. I didn't see anybody else put it out there, so maybe there was more, but people were obviously watching the Twitter account. And I tell people this is the kind of year where you almost want to set maybe alerts for the blog or things like that, because the stuff just goes so fast, and if you're not in on it, you're left out, and it could be at midnight Eastern time, or who knows what time that it comes out.
Right. And and thank you, Shawn, for putting that post together and capturing that news. And you said that people are hungry for this sort of thing, quite literally, because it is a breakfast, right?
Yes, exactly.
and Steve Stan Sweet, right? Isn't he involved in some way?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's really cool.
What
What they did this year to do it a little bit different is basically you're paying for your breakfast. That's been a standard thing to kind of hold your spot or whatever. But this year they added in you're making a donation for your reservation was a donation to Rancho Obi-Wan, which is Steve Sansweet's place up in Northern California, where he has the world's largest Star Wars collection and tons of stuff from the movies and everything there. And so basically you're making a donation to his nonprofit to keep it up and running and open and everything and supporting that. And then they've always been great about getting a lot of donations from people like Hallmark and Hasbro or whatever to give away exclusives at their breakfast, so that's going to continue. And then on top of that, having Steve Sansweet as a kind of an official sponsor of it, there's going to be a lot of really cool giveaways for those that got into that breakfast. So congrats to everyone that's doing that.
Yeah, very jealous. That's cool. All right, and just want to remind everybody that we have over 80 events on our offsite calendar so far, with a month to go, over a month to go. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I think that's going to bring us to a close. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
No.
Nah.
We got tons of questions. James, I didn't play the question of the day because you don't like it. Should I?
He was just doing his Harrison Ford impersonation.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna play the question of the day with the. Oh.
Well, you can take it there, nerd.
Oh, can you hear?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're really taking it to a level that I'm not quite sure that they're supposed to be analyzed on. Wait, I just think I thought of a really good one. Isn't that the question of the day? Can't wait.
Awesome. So I wanted to. That's the first time you heard that, right, Shawn?
Yeah, it is.
And hopefully the last. All right, so we got a couple questions on Twitter. So Blue Inari asks, did you hear about the new fuel rod stations located throughout the San Diego Convention Center? No. Anybody know about this? Fuel rod stations? What's that?
Sounds like maybe they put some charging stations on maybe the pillars or somewhere.
Oh.
That's cool. No, I haven't heard.
We'll find out.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Investigate. F-Disc member says, why aren't the panels streamed online for those who can't make it, like music festivals and other conventions? Hey, Doug, what's your take on this? I mean, they do stream it what they do, like the Hall H.
Playback.
Yeah, the replay.
They'll replay everything except for the footage that you want to see. So if you want to sort of see conversations, sure, that they do rerun that stuff at the show. But I mean, like New York Comic Con, they actually do stream live for people who can't get into the main room. They stream it out in a different room. I don't know why San Diego's a little bit weird about that, but again, it's always the studios bring the stuff to us exclusively. Please do not record it, and that's what's going to end up happening when they put it on a big screen without too much supervision.
Right.
They're going to end up. People are just going to put up their cameras and start filming it.
Right. Exactly. I wanted to ask you this question, Doug, from Mike Nelson. He asks, do you think that it should be renamed Pop Culture Con as more and more comic book companies are scaling back? What's your take on that?
I don't know are they scaling back? Because I mean, honestly, when it comes to any of the conventions, sure, it's not as big of a comic-focused convention as others. It's still the place to see more comic creators and studios and publishers than any other comic convention in the country that I'm aware of. I mean, New York might be pretty close because there's a lot of stuff based out there, but honestly, San Diego is still the biggest comic con.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, they could rename it, but it's the brand,
But we talked to David Glanzer from Comic-Con International last year, and I mean, he made it clear that it's always been a pop culture convention. They've always had movies, and they've always had television shows, and they've always had comics in books or whatever. It's just that what's getting the most attention right now is all of the movies and the Hollywood stuff. But
just like trolls on the internet, whoever makes the most noise gets the most notice. So
right. Exactly.
Big media makes the most noise. You're going to hear about movies more than you're going to hear about the latest person who's drawing Spider-Man.
Right. I got another question for you, Doug. Nicole Johnson asks about shuttle services. No, she says shuttle services are only downtown, Hotel Circle, and airport area. In your opinion, why not National City or Chula Vista? I mean, I don't know about that, but any tips or advice that you can give in regards to the shuttle services that Comic-Con provides?
If they did that to the more outlying towns, they probably wouldn't run as often, and it probably wouldn't be worth their time to do so.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I mean, obviously there's a lot of cost in running those buses constantly, and to run them in and out of the city, I guess that's probably the reason why they don't do it. Because honestly, I mean, San Diego, since it does get taken over by Comic-Con, it almost becomes a desolate place of nothing but Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason.
Place of everything that's
I mean, I don't know if people even do business anymore beyond a certain street in that city, because it's, unless you're servicing the people who come to Comic-Con because of food or lodging, there's no reason for your business to be there. That, send everybody home and work from home that week.
Right. Exactly.
I'm guessing,
Yeah. All right, Shawn, here's a question for you from NASCAR and Bronco fans. Please describe the average time at LEGO and its chances of getting an exclusive for some of these people who think this is a mall and Walmart Black Friday.
Well, like the getting the exclusives is really super crazy, and it's something we've just decided a few years ago. We decided a few years ago that we just weren't going to even deal with Lego. I mean, we've made the occasional run over there, but that's a really popular one with the vendors. And yeah, it's pretty well maxed out early and looped. Now, last year they changed even with like their minifig giveaways, and they did things where there was like the whole lottery thing, which I think you Jeremy, I think you participated in one of those, didn't you? Where it was like
I stood in line. It was insane. Yeah. I was all the way down to the marina.
Right, exactly. And so they kind of have been caught changing gears, and that's one of the booths actually I would talk about, is that like the last 2 years they've done a lot of things different each year, and even from day to day to kind of cope with the masses. And so I would say this year, who knows even what they will do exactly, but normally it loops around the full length of the thing, very much like Hasbro does, and it's one giant circle, and it caps, and similar to Hallmark or Hasbro, where it may cap and then it may reopen if they have a couple spots. I mean, that's the thing with exclusives, is the people working the booth just want to sell the stuff, and they don't want to fight, and they don't so they're not worried about the ethics of like, hey, I was just here but you let them go, and when I asked 5 minutes ago you said you weren't going to open it up in an hour. They just let people in whenever they can let them in. So yeah, it's messy.
Yeah, it is messy. Hopefully they do a little better job this year. They've learned from that. And then last thing, we talked about this with Eric last week. Janine Lucero asks, heard anything about a Lost reunion? We haven't heard anything other than last year and then what we talked about with Eric last week, so there's always a possibility.
Yeah. It was really cool at the Paley Center that they did one, but they didn't have everybody there, but it was really cool to see, and it would be a cool preview to one at a big Ballroom 20 one at San Diego.
Ballroom 20, that would be a Hall H one.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe so.
Doug, so if there was a dream panel, what would it be for you?
No, that Star Wars one I mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already seen all the X-Men, and we've already seen the Avengers show up on stage, but the idea of Harrison grumbling his way through a Star Wars panel, sitting next to Peter Mayhew, and Carrie just saying every inappropriate thing she wants to say, and Mark doing Joker impressions, I mean, the whole time, it's pretty much... if it happens, it's going to happen only one time. They're not going to do it for episode 8, 9, beyond.
Yep. So. You've sold me. I'm ready for that one.
It's a guess. Nobody quote me. Don't put this on the blog saying that this is truth. It's just my guess.
Right. Oh, Janet R. actually told us about the fuel rod station. So she said the convention center is happy to announce. Janet, are you with the convention center? I don't know where she's getting this. So she said the happy announce there are 7 fuel rod stations throughout the facility for $20. Attendees can purchase reusable portable charging systems called fuel rods. Then you can charge on the go. I guess that's...
You buying them or renting them?
Reusable portable charging system. So maybe you take it with you.
So like a Mophie, probably.
Yeah. I'm just sending... Probably do like a half a charge or a charge on a phone or something, and then recharge it. So interesting.
By the way, speaking of collectibles, have you guys heard anything about anything with Disney Infinity? If they're doing anything there? Because I was just E3 last week, and that was like the most popular line at that place. You'd stand in line. This is small compared to Comic-Con, but you'd sit in line for like an hour and a half just to, at least, to get a random figure that was blind boxed.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, because I wrote an article about the video games of E3. I wasn't at E3, but from afar, my eye in the sky approach. But just to see, what can we expect from some of the big publishers and console manufacturers and what's already been announced. But yeah, I forgot to put that on there. But Disney Infinity 2.0 is really all about Marvel. Right. So that's definitely going to be at Comic-Con, I would think, especially. Yeah. They were at Comic-Con last year. They had that salon, the Disney Infinity salon that was off-site. So yeah, they should definitely be back.
They seem to repeat whatever they do at E3 in giveaways. They do at Comic-Con.
Yeah. The next month. And that makes the most sense too, because like they have all these big booths and these big presentations and stuff they use for E3. They might as well just cart them down the road a month later and put them at Comic-Con.
Yeah. And my thing is next year, my next Star Wars prediction is they'll do the same thing with Star Wars, Disney Infinity next year.
Yeah,
so
I will definitely buy that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, those are all the questions that we had. So let's go ahead and close this out. So Doug, where can our listeners find more of your work on the internet?
TheConmunity.com, SDCCSurvivalGuide.com. By the way, the Conmunity, I just launched the Facebook and Twitter and Google+. It could use likes and follows and whatever you like, because hopefully a lot of stuff will be coming through there pretty soon. So.
Cool. I'll definitely be liking that. Awesome. Thank you. And then, James, how about you?
I am pretty much everywhere as Dan Regal, and you can check out my wife and I's photo business at geekshotphoto.com.
Cool. Shawn?
On Twitter at _con_fluence, and our website, theconfluencecovers.com, and our Facebook page could use likes too, so while you're doing those ones for Doug, go over to ours too. Off of our homepage, you can just click on there and get in there. And we'll be at Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con this weekend, so actually just seeing George Perez will probably be one of the highlights of the weekend there, because he's always super fun, and we'll be tweeting and Instagramming a ton of pictures and YouTubing videos and all that kind of stuff over the weekend, so if you are interested in all that comic stuff, follow along.
Excellent.
If you're there in Las Vegas, go stop by the Nito Comics booth. Say Doug sent you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Awesome. All right, and then I am at Spot Anime on Twitter, but I'm also tweeting for the blog at SD_comic_con, and obviously our website is SDCCblog.com. We are on iTunes, so if you'd like to subscribe, the links are up on the blog, or search for SDConCast in iTunes. If you like what you've heard so far, please review us. I got to check and see how many reviews we've actually gotten. I should read some of them. We are also on Stitcher Radio, so if you don't want to download it, you can stream that for right there on the web. You can go to the link in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at sdcomiccon.blog@gmail.com. You can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/sdconblog. Give us some links there too, or tweet us at sd_comic_con. Thanks for listening, and until next week, everybody, go shawarma.
Go shawarma.
When Joss Whedon wrote you back, you almost had a heart attack. You still talk about it to this day. It's a memory that lingers on, like meeting Spike at DragonCon, or seeing Nathan Fillion in LA. What will children think of angels when they're grown? When they're grown, oh, will they love River like you did? When they're grown, when they're grown.
Ah, nice.